जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंग। तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मागे। गाए तब जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
रसिक हो नमस्कार. सहर्ष सादर करीत आहोत ज्ञान साधना गीत. कवी प्राध्यापक प्रवीण दवणे, संगीत विनय राजवाडे.
शिवाचे मंदिर सुंदर मानव्याचा ध्यास निरंतर. सत्य शिवाचे मंदिर सुंदर मानव्याचा ध्यास निरंतर. गुरु शिष्याच्या नात्यामधली प्रतस्थ मन साधना. सदैव उजळो आपुली ज्ञान साधना. ज्ञान साधना. अज्ञानाचा तमः सारुण विश्वात्मक स्वर येई उजळून. अज्ञानाचा तमः सारुण विश्वात्मक स्वर येई उजळून. शूरवीर संतांचे पूजन जागविते चेतना. ज्ञान ज्योतीने सदैव उजळो आपुली ज्ञान साधना. ज्ञान साधना.
Hello all. It gives me great pleasure and honor to welcome today's guest speaker, Dr. Gauri Golame, gynecologist, Mrs. Mansi Pradhan, trustee, Gnan Sadhana Trust, and mentor of Being Me Committee, WDC convener, Dr. Seema Ketkar, student organizers, Pranali Aishwarya Dikshita, Being Me Committee members, WDC committee members, and all those who are here to watch the program, which is jointly organized by Women Development Cell and Being Me Committee on the theme Women Health and Wellness. Under this title, we have today's program, I Can Survive. This program is conducted for female students and lady staff of our college. Humans are beautiful creations of God, each with different abilities. Many are differently able and recognize their inner strength. Some stay abandoned by commonly able. Being Me is an initiative taken by Satish Pradhan and Sadhana College for coming 5 years, which would focus on different social concerns such as LGBT community, Divyangjan, cancer awareness, AIDS, PCOD, PCOS, etc. This event will help stakeholders to recognize the strength of differently able sections of our society. Being Me is to create awareness about gender, health issues, and problems faced by physically disabled and differently gifted people. Our college students are the representative of future generation. This is an attempt to make them responsible citizens and to develop empathy among them for different stakeholders of our society. Primary objectives are to change the attitude of stakeholders towards sexuality stereotypes, to broaden the understanding about gender identity and equality, to create awareness about gender-specific health issues like cancer, AIDS, specific health issues of male and female, to help unskilled working population in enhancing skill set, to sensitize stakeholders towards issues of differently able and to help in their empowerment. The theme of Being Me for this year is sensitization of stakeholders towards LGBT community, Divyangjan, personal hygiene and healthcare concern. Under this year's theme, Being Me and WDC had jointly organized today's program on cancer awareness, personal hygiene and healthcare concerns. For healthcare, we all know how females in general are ignorant and casual towards their health, and so awareness programs are needed. WDC of the college is functioning since 2001 as per the guidelines set by the University of Mumbai. Creating gender-just campus is the primary objective of WDC, and accordingly, various programs are conducted. Today's program is organized keeping in view the wellness of women and girl students on campus, addressing the issues related to lifestyle, stress, hormones, creating awareness regarding even women-specific cancers is the main aim of today's program. For this, we have invited Dr. Gauri Golame, who is obstetrician and gynecologist and practicing in Western Mumbai for several years. I welcome her on behalf of WDC and Being Me Committee and take this privilege to introduce her formally. Dr. Gauri Golame is one of the most esteemed gynecologists in Mumbai, having experience of 25 years in medical field. She has completed her DGO from Lokmanya Tilak Municipal Medical College, Sion, Mumbai in 2002, MBBS from Grand Medical College and Sir JJ Hospital, Mumbai in 1997. She runs clinic in Dahisar East. I am sure we are all eager to know many things from her, and surely all will be benefited by her informative lecture. Before proceeding further, I must mention here that we always get encouragement and support from management, principal, all my colleagues in arranging such program. Thank you all. So without wasting much of time, now I request Dr. Gauri ma'am to deliver her lecture. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Gauri Vadame, and I am honored that I am starting a session with this college regarding a talk on the awareness of health and cancer awareness in women. I am obliged that I was given the opportunity to start the opening session. I am the opening batsman for this session, and I hope I'm able to provide an insight into the health awareness to the young girls, the faculty, and also maybe start the ball rolling for the future sessions to come. Thank you. I am practicing in the by my profession. I'm an obstetrician and gynecologist. I am practicing in this field for the last 18 years plus, and having been dealt with all the maybe girls, infants, and ladies, I would like to start my talk by a very simple line that what is healthy? Healthy is living well despite your inescapable illnesses and diseases. So, what does it basically mean? If we are healthy in mind, body, so what happens? We live a good life. So, what is total wellness? Total wellness is the balance and, and integration of the physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, occupational, environmental, and social aspects of human condition. So these are basically nothing but seven dimensions of wellness. Given this, we are basically able to function nicely, function comfortably in the society. I would attribute this or address this basically wellness dimensions to the ladies present in the group, the girls, the teenagers, as well as the faculty. The girls, why now? The girls are going to be the future women of our and to be holding their families. So basically, going from down below, so we have the emotional, the physical, the intellectual, the spiritual, the environmental, occupational, and the social wellnesses. So what does this basically mean? It means that when the girl is or the woman is healthy in body, mind, her physique is her health is good, her emotional mental balance is good, her emotional quotient is good, she is good intellectually, she is good, she having out good time in the society and in the environment, she can perform her best. So going ahead, I would like to just say that being a lady or being a girl or being a woman, we kind of face health challenges right from, you could say, from the womb to the tomb. So I would like to just take you through the figurative chart or figurative lines through which a lady passes through her life. To begin with, we start with the intrauterine, or this is intrauterine. Could the other word is basically being inside the womb. So basically, womb. So what does it mean? Basically, the girl when she's inside the womb, whatever challenges she faces as a child, or maybe in the form of some anomalies, or maybe as in the form of some illnesses or some diseases, that is basically what we mean by intrauterine challenges. Infancy, that is between when a child is growing after the birth, then childhood up to 9 years of age, adolescent 9 to 14 years of age, young adults who are unmarried, young married adults, and obstetric challenges. Obstetric means what? Basically maternity challenges or maternity age. So this is when the lady completes her maybe her teenage or her college life, and she's now entering into the family arena. So what challenges she faces as maybe a mother, or when she's going through all that part of her life. Next is the family planning part, where she doesn't want to continue have a family anymore, and when she wants to start the family and she takes adequate care not to have any more kids. And last but not the least, the curtain, when the curtain starts finally falling on a reproductive age, we have the when the lady approaches the later part of her life, that is around maybe say 45 years of age. It is the perimenopausal period and the menopausal period. So basically, I would like to take you through the life cycle of a woman and the health issues which we can address during this period. You can say the infancy and childhood. This basically goes from 0 to 9 years. Zero means that is from the birth to 9 years of age. So what all topics do we cover in this? Basically, sex selection, genital mutilation, discriminating nutrition, discriminating healthcare. The points which are given here are basically rough points. So I would just like to give a bit of a highlight into these points. By sex selection, I basically it is meant here that where families in India are still with the fact that they need an heir to their family, female feticide is still very common. So sex selection is still going on in our country in spite of the government making such stringent laws against female feticide, abortion laws. Still, these things are going on, and we have families and we have parents and we have mothers coming up for selective abortion after sex determination, and because of which we in fact in between has saw a very large fall in the ratio of the male to female ratio after the government came up with very stringent laws. Now the ratio is some back coming back to normal. Still in the interior parts of many parts of India and Maharashtra also, the ratio is still on the lower side. And the next is genital mutilation. Genital mutilation basically means is that in some children or some infants where they are born with defective genital parts, wherein they have some medical diseases in which there is an ambiguity of the genital parts, where the parents can't decide whether the part is that of a female or a male, due to some hormonal imbalances, some genetic problems, the parents don't know how to raise the child as a male or a female. So rather than considering a doctor, they take it upon them to maybe mutilate the genital parts and grow the child according to their wish and whim, the way they want it to be, whether they want it to be a girl or they want it to be a boy. And in most cases, it is like a boy. Even if it's a girl, it is raised as a boy for their satisfaction. Last, then second is the third point is discriminatory nutrition. This is very commonly seen in a family, in a big family where you see many three, four girls where and there is only one boy. The boy is the center of attraction in the family because he is the blessed one, the wanted one, and the girls in the family, they are given less nutrition so as to suffice the needs of the male in the family. Discriminating in healthcare, this is also very commonly seen where the female in the family or the female is not given that much of importance when it comes to health issues, saying that she's a girl, she at the moment she does not require any health related issues, or we can take care of it later on. So finally what happens is that infancy, that is the and childhood, that is the most important period of any girl's life or any child's life, where your health and your body mentally, physically is building up. So during this time, if you don't attend to the basic and minor problems, so that they turn into major problems later on when the child becomes big. And then we have, as a parent and as a doctor, it is at times very difficult to address those issues. Carrying on with the journey after the infancy and childhood is over, the boy or the girl enters now adolescence. 10 to 15 years of age, this is a part of the phase where she's now going to enter the pubertal part of her age. That is, now she's going to grow up, and from an infant or a child, she's going to go into a woman, or she's going to start getting her menses. So, what are the challenges which come? There are a few which are mentioned over here. That is early childbearing and abortion, sexually transmitted diseases and HIV infection. Then there's undernutrition and anemia, and increased substance abuse. These are the general challenges which are felt, which I also commonly see in practice even now. Apart from this, the one which is not mentioned here, and I need to address it, is menstrual problems. Menstrual problems are also very commonly, because since menses start in this area, in this age from 12 to 14 years of age, menstrual problems are also a big challenge nowadays with the increasing issue of obesity, childhood depression. There are a lot of issues with menstruation. So this is one more challenge which we are facing in the adolescence age, that is between 10 and 15 years of age. Given the points here, early childbearing and abortion, as of now with the laws, Indian laws and Indian stringent laws made, the early childbearing is kind of very less seen now. But I still encounter and I still come across patients who are still in their gray zone area. So you could say a age of 16 to 17 years of age, where I still see girls becoming mothers, and which is a very sad part to see when they are themselves children, they are not even ready to face the world as a woman. They are pushed into this family arena and they are made to bear a child. Of course, it has a bearing on the mother and the child as well. About early childbearing and abortion. Early abortion, why? Because they become unmarried mothers, and because they become unmarried mothers, then they are forced into abortion because the parents and the families can't allow this child to grow, leading to many other psychological and health problems later on. Sexually transmitted diseases like HIV and all, this basically comes from unsafe sex practices, and many times it is seen with rape cases, or even in consanguineous sex where there is polygamy, there are multiple partners in. We see these kind of infections. Undernutrition and anemia. So anemia and undernutrition basically more so occurs in families where the amount of people or the amount number of people in the family are more, and the nutrition portion which comes to the child's sake is little less, which leads to anemia. Anemia is basically what? Anemia is basically a fall in the HB or the low HB count. Low HB count leads to other medical illnesses, like maybe you say swelling, you could say lack of concentration and fatigue, and because of which they are not able to perform well in their daily activities. Increased substance abuse. Uh, Very commonly seen nowadays with the influence of the social media and the lifestyle. Children feel like experimenting into the different kind of substances available in the market for abuse, and even they find it's a sort of status symbol that they should try all the substances. But really, as I feel, as a part of being a doctor and as a parent, and maybe you guys are doing a great job by counseling. So we should make them aware of these things and try to prevent them and basically discourage them and tell them that this is not life and this is not which is going to help us in future. Carrying on ahead, when the girl finishes this adolescence part of her age, 10 to 15 years, she becomes a teenager, she becomes 18. Now she's ready to become a woman. By Indian laws, by 18, after 18, she can marry. So now, slowly, she's going to enter into reproductive age. Reproductive age means what? The age when she's fertile and she can now produce a child. So what happens in this age? In this age, what are the complications which we face in this reproductive age? Is then unwanted, unplanned pregnancies. You have abortions, you have same like AIDS and sexual transmitted infections, pregnancy complications, and anemia. There are much more in this, but at the moment we'll consider only this. I will go through this part of unwanted and unplanned pregnancy later on when I will take a special talk on contraceptives and talk about unwanted pregnancies in detail. Regarding abortions, I have already mentioned, and pregnancy complications also I will take it later on when we talk about pregnancy related other things. And anemia, like I have mentioned, is a lack of is a low HB count where the hemoglobin is low, and due to which multiple health problems are faced by the girl and also the woman when they are childbearing, when they are going through daily routine, they feel tired, they feel fatigued. Now, up to 44 years of age, you could say it's 30-year span from which the start of menstruation up to 30 years, generally the lady is fertile, during which time she can produce kids. After this time, after she starts approaching maybe a age of 44 beyond, she starts entering into the age of, you could say, perimenopause. Perimenopause means what? It is the age before menopause when the lady starts having symptoms related menopause. This goes on for around 3 years time when she has multiple symptoms, vasomotor symptoms, and later on, maybe after 45 years of age or 46 years of age, slowly she starts entering the age of menopause, where there is a you could say irregularity of the periods. The periods might come for 6 months, they might stop for 2 months. So basically, 45 years and above, the challenges which we see in ladies is basically related to the menstrual issues. So what are the apart from the menstrual problems, because the lady is now lady is going to stop her period. What happens is because of that is that she gets health issues because her periods are eventually stopped. So why this happens? This happens because the hormonal levels in the body of the female after menopause starts dropping. So when the after the menopause, when the hormonal levels start dropping, what happens is that the hormones, the estrogen hormone in the lady's body is a prime support for the lady, which keeps her in good health all the time. So once you start entering menopause, the hormonal levels start dropping, and due to which you develop all kind of symptoms which normally the menopausal lady start complaining. The common being bloating, you get vasomotor symptoms like you get headache, you get flushing, you get sweating, you feel scared, you have lack of confidence, you get emotional disturbances, you get mood disturbances, you just start crying. There is no reason why you start crying. The only thing at this time which is very helpful is that the family needs to be very supportive, very understanding, and they have to understand that the lady in the house is undergoing menopause. They have to educate themselves with the findings and the signs and symptoms of menopause, and help the lady and support the lady to go through this phase very smoothly. With the support of the family, generally this phase is taken through very well. And once you actually attain menopause, then the vasomotor symptoms slightly start going down gradually, and then after some time they go to a plateau, and then you really feel good about it after some time. During that time, you can visit your gynecologist. You can take support. There are support medicines to cover this phase. You can take calcium to keep yourself fresh and healthy. Exercise always makes you happy and better. Now, in this reproductive, post-reproductive age, 45 years and above, because we have stopped our menses as a lady, we encounter some difficulties which start increasing more after we stop our menses. Among there are gynecological malignancies. Malignancy basically means cancer. Cancer generally comes in 2 3 phases. So amongst which the cancer which the ladies generally face is that is the uterine cancer, the cervical cancer, and the ovarian cancer. Generally, they have a late relapse. They have a late phase seen, which is generally seen in the postmenopausal part. That is 45 years plus. Generally, malignancies are seen very commonly. Breast may be seen early, but generally uterine, ovarian, and the cervical cancers are generally seen in the late phase. It is called a late peak. That is 45 plus when these malignancies are picked up. Cardiovascular diseases, osteoporosis, osteoarthritis. These you could say are late complications of menopause. Cardiovascular, renal, even kidney diseases, eye diseases. all these are late complications of menopause and which are generally seen in the later half. Maybe once menopause has set in, after 3 years, generally the problems of cardiovascular, osteoporosis, arthritis start. Before they start, you have to start grooming your body with the help of medicines, exercise, weight control, calcium, so that these problems later on may not occur. Diabetes mellitus. Why diabetes mellitus? The hormones in our body basically keep our hormonal the body milieu intact and support our body. So once the hormonal milieu or hormonal levels in the body go for a toss, we generally end up with more of medical problems. Diabetes mellitus is one of them. Diabetes mellitus means basically simple diabetes. So diabetes basically increases more so after you start getting the menopausal problems. Hence it is always said that when you are approaching diabetes, you have to take very good care of your health and keep yourself healthy, fit and exercise, that these problems will occur later on in the later peak of life, you can handle them better. Now, the last but not the least, there is a last point which is mentioned over here is lifetime issues. What do you mean by lifetime issues? Gender violence, environmental and occupational hazards, and depression. So, what do you basically mean by this? The gender violence is basically the female gender which undergoes a violence or which undergoes abuse all the time in the family. I would not say all the time in the current scenario, but all the time at the receiving end. Then the environmental and occupational hazards, where the female maybe at the workplace or maybe at her traveling place suffers problems or suffers issues as regards to the social scenario seen around. And depression also is a very common thing which is seen after menopause, and the most common cause for this depression is basically the lack of hormonal or the loss or the low levels of hormones is basically make you more prone to depression later on in life. The hormonal levels in the body and the menstrual cycle basically make you very healthy, keep you very healthy and fit. But once you reach the menopause, all these levels taken away, you start developing symptoms of depression, agitation, and basically mood swing. Later on, we can become into depression. So to start with, they generally are mood swings. If the family is good enough, the family is smart enough, they pick up the symptoms, take the patient to the doctor, and the thing gets treated in time. But later on, if not, it will end up with depression. But everything is curable, everything is treatable with modern science today. Now, it's a real jump. I had spoken with the faculty, Seema madam, and we were very keen to address some issues, which is very common to the maybe girl population or the teen population nowadays. And the most common thing which I see in a clinical practice, I could say 10 out of my 10, 5 patients are nowadays having this problem is PCOD. The PCOD problem, which is nowadays very much in, I thought I would take a special address on this topic because PCOD related problems later on convert to many other problems later on in your menstrual life, your fertility life, and your medical life. So, hence, I thought I would put a special reference to PCOD. And since Madam said the college girls are we are really joined by our college girls, I thought this would be maybe a helpful topic for them to discuss. So, what is PCOD basically? PCOD is nothing but this diagram here. This is basically the uterus and with the fallopian tubes, and what we can see a grape-like structure is basically the ovary. The normal ovary is seen on the right side, and the abnormal ovary is seen on the left side. So what is basically polycystic ovaries? Polycystic ovaries means where we see a grape-like cluster-like follicles in the ovary, whereby there is a problem with the menstrual cycle. Along with that, we have many physical medical conditions or medical symptoms seen in the girl, which occur due to hormonal disturbances due to the irregular menstrual pattern. So now we will take it one by one. So basically, what is it that it affects 4 to 6% of the women? Like I said, out of my 10% of the OPD nowadays, I am seeing every almost 5%, 5 girls coming with problem of PCOD. So incidence is fast rising due to change in lifestyle and stress. It is the most common cause of anovulation. Anovulation means where there is no ovulation seen from the ovary. I'll explain later on. And 20 and the last part is basically a medical part, so I will let it go. The basic point which I want to address over here is that with the current scenario, with the children going so much of stress, you could say the if you are talking about the teenagers or the girls in your college, maybe the study related stress, the classes, the schedule where they sit for 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours in one place. There is no physical activity at all. lack absolutely bad food habits where children skip meals, children eat junk food outside just to skip weight, so that they save time on eating food. All these things basically lead to obesity, and once they lead to obesity, what happens is that it causes furthermore disturbance in the menstrual pattern, due to which what happens is that there is irregular cycle. The cycle will be every 2 months, every 3 months, sometimes not for there for 6 months, and then you have to take medicines to get the cycle back. So because of all these problems of menstruation, so what do you actually see? How do you know that you are having this problem physically? How do you know you are having this problem? So these are the clinical features which I have mentioned in short, which you could see on the screen, which will show you about the symptoms or the features which are seen basically because of the OPCOS. So this is a young woman, so you will have central obesity. Now, what do I mean by central obesity? Central obesity basically means you get a paunch. Female body is made up in such a way that females gather all their fat near the pelvis, means that is near their buttocks area. Generally, a female will never have her paunch or will never have a tummy like a male gets it. Male gets tummy because of the male hormones in his body. So what basically happens in PCOD for general population to know is that in PCOD, the male hormones in our body start rising. Due to which what happens is that we develop all male related features. Means what? We start developing a paunch, and we start getting hair growth. So what, where do we get the hair growth? Exactly like where the males get it. We get hair growth in the chin area, in the facial area, and the quality of the hair is like that of males. It is thick, it is difficult to go, and maybe at times you require waxing, threading for the same. The second point here is that oligomenorrhea, amenorrhea. What is oligomenorrhea? Oligomenorrhea means it is scanty menses, which is a very, very common symptom which is seen along with PCOS, is that the girls get scanty. Always they report that we have less flow. We hardly use a pad, or hardly the pad is stained. We get periods for 5 days, but there is hardly a drop or hardly a changing of a pad. So that is meaning by oligomenorrhea. So next is amenorrhea. Amenorrhea means where there are no menses for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, there are no menses. At times, when they have to visit the gynecologist, come to a doctor, take medicines, and then they get menses, followed by prolonged or heavy period. So, what happens basically in this is that when you don't get menses for a long time, there is a hormone in our body called estrogen. It starts increasing, lining the uterus. The uterine wall keeps growing inside, and at one point, when the uterine vessels can't support the uterine wall, it just starts shedding. That is the normal pattern in the menstrual cycle, where the inner lining is shed when you get the menses. But in PCOS, since there is uncontrolled growth of the endometrium because there is no hormone, the progesterone hormone, which causes the withdrawal bleeding, you get heavy menses. And then the menses go on for 7 days, 8 days till the endometrium is completely shed. Then you may have to visit a doctor to stop the menses or even make the flow less. This is a very common thing which is seen. You can see scanty menses, you can say no menses, and then followed by heavy menses. The last point is dysmenorrhea. This body dysmenorrhea. Dysmenorrhea is basically painful menses. Why it is absent? Because dysmenorrhea is basically a sign of ovulation. So when you ovulate in the cycle, you generally get dysmenorrhea. But in PCOD, there is no ovulation as such, because of it dysmenorrhea is absent. Next point is infertility. Very commonly seen point for patients who come for infertility is that a lot many times suffer from PCOD, due to which they are not able to ovulate. And if they don't ovulate, they can conceive. They have a difficult time in conceiving. Pregnancy loss. So what happens basically is that the hormonal milieu in the body is so changed, and due to which it causes some medical changes in the body. So because of which there is a, maybe you could say, a weak pregnancy, or a improper or a weaker hormonal milieu which doesn't support the pregnancy very well, and it leads to pregnancy losses. The last point is hyperandrogenism, that is hirsutism, acne, and acanthosis nigricans. Hirsutism basically means, like I said before, hair growth, which is seen in the chin area, which is seen in the facial area. Acne. What is acne? Acne is basically pimples. So pimples is basically a sign of the excessive testosterone activity in the body. It basically deposits in the skin, and due to which you are prone to getting acne and with pimples. Acanthosis nigricans means basically what? If you observe the girls or the ladies who generally have very high amount of PCOD, they get pigmentation of the skin. So what happens is that the exposure, the neck fold, it becomes dark. You can see dark skin folds, and you can overall also see pigmentation in the, maybe the stomach area, the underarm area. These become dark. So because of it, because of the PCOD problems. This is the ultrasound picture of a PCOD patient where you can see the follicles. This is just for information for people, for you all to know that how a PCOD looks on sonography. So the next part is how do we manage PCOD. So what the picture here shows a girl on the right, on the left, which is lean, and a girl on the right, which is obese. So what basically is shown in that we have two varieties of PCOS. One is lean variety of PCOS and one is the obese variety of PCOS. Lean variety means she will have all the symptoms of PCOD, but yet she is thin. And obese variety of PCOS means she will have all the symptoms of PCOD, but yet she is obese. So these are the two varieties of PCOS which we commonly encounter in our practice. So what is the goal of management? The goal of management here is to what? A cure a woman with menstrual disorder, to treat hirsutism and to treat infertility. If you take it one by one, common to, I mean, I'm addressing the audience here. I would like to really share with you. Menstrual disorder is what I would like to talk to you about. Is that here the pattern of menstruation is really erratic, where there is no cycle basically at all. So since but the girls are young, we get some information with the help of the sonography and a few blood tests like thyroid and prolactin. If they are normal, then we either put them on the rhythm method where we put give them progesterone in the second half of the pregnancy, second half of the cycle, by which they get withdrawal bleeding, and we try to put the cycle back into normal. And along with this, we advise to them, we give them some supporting medicines which basically help to change the hormonal levels or the some insulin resistance levels in the body. So because of which the menstrual pattern can somehow come back to normal naturally. The girls being small, below 18 years of age, generally we don't advocate any hormonal tablets, much of tablets, because once you give them hormones, they can have a difficulty going back to the normal or natural cycle later on. To treat hirsutism, hirsutism can really be, a really bothersome issue when there's a lot of excessive hair growth. You have to do waxing, threading. So many girls later on go for laser treatment, but doctor also tells you that apart from this, you have to even treat the basic PCOD. There are few, I'll take you ahead. So there are some few pharmacological treatment therapies which we offer for the hirsutism part also. And last but is not the least is the infertility. So this is related to the population which is trying to conceive, where we give medicines for conception. They are called pro-fertility medicines, which we give along with some other medicines, and try to reduce the level of PCOD and just make them fertile and just try to help them in conception. So here we have the first point which we're taking is non-pharmacological therapy. That is, you can see in on the slide, it is like weight loss, then it is lifestyle, and it is a diet versus exercise. So basically, what it is seen is that weight loss is only helpful. It may not be helpful in hirsutism, but weight loss definitely reverses the, not I would say completely, but helps you to reverse the PCOD pattern and also helps you to have a better menstrual cycle. Because let me tell you one thing, that the better the menstrual cycle you have, the better the health you have, and the more fresh you feel and the more active you feel. Because along with PCOD, you have many symptoms like fatigue and tiredness, lack of concentration. And if we have all these symptoms, when especially in the girls like ours, like when they are in the career age or in the growing age, it might help them, not help them with their to achieve their goals or help them in their careers. So this, at this point on this problem of PCOD should definitely be addressed by parents and the girls. And if any problem should be talked to and should be taken treatment for. The next is diet and exercise. So I would really suggest that if you take a visit a good diet, and this is only for girls who are basically obese. If you visit a good dietitian, you take a good diet advice and you exercise, you can cut down on your weights. Yeah, and if you cut down, the moment you cut down on your weights, you are able to many times get back to our old menstrual pattern, which is a regular pattern. And then with the menstrual pattern being regular, all your other medical illnesses or your medical symptoms also go down a lot, and then you are able to achieve a maybe a healthy life and maybe a healthy mind. Then because of that, lifestyle, smoking cessation. Smoking alcohol is now the most in thing in the new generation, and I would really like to suggest is that in the later on in the life overall, is if for a female especially, these factors like smoking and alcohol, they can take a toll on your health, your menstrual problems, your fertility problems. So I, as far as possible, females should avoid smoking, and alcohol should be kept to the limit, should be to the limit, and should not be indulged to, so it can give you a good health. Pharmacological method means basically the medicines which we offer to patients for treatment of PCOD. We have the oral combined pills, and these are basically the combination of pills which we offer to patients as a doctor to help the patient to overcome the problem of PCOD, where we give them regular cycles, we give them monthly cycles, and also we make them ready so that they can try and later on conceive in a better way. Surgery is basically for those females who have failed medical therapy. So this is for the doctors then. Just a small in brief, the consequences of PCOS, maybe short term and long term. In short term, like I previously mentioned, is obesity, infertility, irregular menses, abnormal lipid levels. This is, like I said, the medical problem, hirsutism, acne, and androgenic alopecia, and glucose intolerance and acanthosis. Glucose intolerance basically nothing is but diabetes. And long term sequences, what do we have? We have diabetes because the lipid levels and the glucose levels in the body are going to be altered. Then you have the endometrial cancer, definitely yes. When you have an ovulation, that is when you don't ovulate, what happens is that there's a lack of progesterone hormone, so due to which the body is exposed long term to a hormone called estrogen, which basically makes you prone or makes your endometrium prone to cancer. Thereby the incidence of cancer goes up with the when you have got PCOS, endometrial cancer and cardiovascular diseases. So for basically for PCOS, for I would really say that PCOS can recur. So PCOS is a treatment for PCOS is a temporary thing. That is means it can be treated to a partial level. I would not say it can be completely cured, but your lifestyle modification, your exercise, your diet, and some amount of your pharmacological therapy from your doctor will really help you to have a better menstrual pattern, and also will give you temporary relief, and maybe during your reproductive years will also help you to conceive. Okay. So, like I said, not entirely preventable, adequately treated at earliest, obesity in adolescents avoided and corrected, lifestyle changes recommended. Now, after this, another topic which I really felt was which I need to address to the current generation is that a topic which I could say is basically contraceptives or for the young girls. And I would also say this is a topic for maybe the faculty also, which can be beneficial to the faculty also, because after the teenage, after your infertility, fertility, now you have conceived, and maybe you don't want a child. So this topic is of use to both the young girls who are unmarried and young girls who are even married. Because contraception is required for both of them, the married girls and the unmarried girls. Last maybe 10 years, I'm practicing now for the last almost 18 plus years. And the trend which I have seen is that now the amount of unmarried pregnancies are coming up really very high. So I felt that I should really take this as a talk and maybe educate the girls, the young girls, and maybe the unmarried girls otherwise to about the amount of the variety of contraceptives which we have, which can help them to prevent an unwanted pregnancy and maybe have a better lifestyle. So preventing an unwanted pregnancy here. So we have, what do we have? What all methods we can have? These are all basically family planning methods which can we can use also for unwanted pregnancy. So what are the methods which are available with us? We have the emergency contraception, which is also known as the I-pill. For normal common public, it's known as I-pill, also called as the postcoital pill, which is taken within 12 hours after the intercourse. A medical termination of pregnancy, where we surgically or medically abort the pregnancy with the help of a doctor. Then you have the management of unsafe abortion complication. You have the post-abortion contraception. You have the IUCD, the picture of which is shown in the on the side. IUCD is nothing but an intrauterine contraceptive device. This is more for the married females who want spacing, temporary spacing after first child, when they want a spacing for a second child, or who want to use temporary measures to prevent a long-term pregnancy. So we have this picture is of copper T. This device basically stays in your uterus and it prevents your pregnancy. And last is Depo-Preparation injectable. They are nothing but injections which we offer to ladies, which which access the contraceptive for every 3 months. One recommendation is that these depot preparations are basically for lactating mothers who are just delivered and are feeding their children, to be taken best up to 1 year of life, 1 year of the child's life. So you can have at least 3 or 4 injections maximum, and then you stop the injections, and then you get withdrawal bleeding after some time, and then you shift to a better contraceptive like oral contraceptive pills or maybe a copper T or a tubectomy. So going ahead, like I said, so the next topic which on the unwanted pregnancy was the oral contraceptive pills. They're nothing but they are cyclical pills. The picture is shown here, where you have got 21 or 28-day pills in the packet, like shown. Sorry. So, what are the benefits of the OCs? They are basically cyclical pills which you can take very comfortably and safely till 5 years of life. They, in fact, they in the later in life they reduce the risk of the endometrial cancer, the ovarian cancer, so breast cancer. So they also have long-term side effects are good, but up to 5 6 years of they can be used for spacing also, and in fact they can be even helpful in in females who have got irregular cycles. So in fact they give you dual effects. So what are the benefits of the OCs which we have given over here? They reduce the risk of cancer. They help in treatment of the painful menses. They're treating PCOS, treating acne. Also, what happens is that if you have extended OCs, you can help to improve the mood, reduce headaches, and increase quality of life. Long-term side effects, generally OC pills are not used by any of the females for more than maybe 4 or 5 years, or maybe more than that. So long-term side effects as such given here not known. The infertility, it is said that it has no effect on fertility. In fact, it was the previously said that if you stop OC pills and conceive immediately, in fact you can get twins. No longer said that. And thromboembolism, that is a clot which is formed in the blood clotting, is increased because of the long-term side effect of the OC pills. So by this basically I mean is that OC pills basically help you as a cyclical pill, basically help you to control both your family, have a good menstrual pattern, and they help you in temporary spacing with children. So this is also helpful for, this is recommended for generally for the ladies who are newly married, where they want a spacing for 1 or 2 years and they are not interested in maybe using a barrier method, or they can insert IUCDs, or they can use contraceptive pills. Generally are begun on the first day of the menses in the first cycle, and later on after a gap of 7 days they are begun again. Then the menstrual pattern in after using OC pills, generally they get a lesser cycle with little less menses. The next method which I want to speak about is the barrier method, or commonly known as condoms. So basically, what are they? They are basically nothing but latex sheets. They are basically made of latex sheets, and they have to be worn by the male partner. So you can also call it as a male factor. It is used for the male contraceptive, which is used in having while having intercourse. Said on this barrier method, I would like to take a point and mention here about something called as a unsafe, unsafe sex or unwanted pregnancy and abortion. I have seen lot many females who are coming with to me nowadays with unwanted pregnancy. The cause being that the condom broke or the condom tore, and patient had PCOD, due to which they never realized that they had problems of they could be pregnant. Later on, when we do a test, we come to the patient is pregnant and she's into her in the late pregnancy, and it's a difficult time. So that one thing. Barrier method is really recommended for those girls who are, you could say, maybe college girls who are indulging in sexual activity for two reasons. For one is to prevent sexually transmitted infections, very common, HIV being the first on the list, and second is unwanted pregnancy. So this is the very basic reason why which girls, especially in the unmarried girls, especially should indulge in barrier method of contraceptive. But still, like I said, barrier method of contraceptive has its own fallacy, where a leakage or a tear in the condom can still lead to an accidental pregnancy. Hence, while using a barrier method, you have to be very careful that you don't miss your menses. And in case you miss your menses, please consult a doctor or do a pregnancy test to just check whether you're pregnant or not. Last but not the least, this is more useful for the married faculty who are wishing to maybe not have any kids in future, or want to stop their the family way. So for them, these methods are there. One is the tubectomy, which tubectomy is there, which is can be used then by laparoscopy or by open method. The other for the male partner is vasectomy, where we ligate the vas for the male, and it can be still achieved, and you can have a permanent sterilization method. Then. Going ahead, we have the challenges of obstetrics, that is the family way. So this topic I think I will take in short, because this is basically for the people or the faculty who wishes to go into the family way and they encounter difficulties while conception. A list of complications which are obstetric problem which can occur during the your pregnancy is mentioned over here, and these are the treatment, but this is more so for the medical faculty. The concern here is that the safe delivery. So what basically is important is that when you are pregnant, when you're trying to conceive, you visit a doctor, you take you go take good pro-fertility and pre-fertility medicines. See that you have a good hormonal levels, you have a good vitamin level in your body, so you can have a healthy pregnancy. The child conceived is good, child conceived is healthy, and you have a safe time in your 9 months of pregnancy. See that you register with a hospital which has got all the in-house facilities. Your doctor is available over there. Then you take all good antenatal care, by which you take the medicines, you do the blood test, you do the sonography, you do whatever tests are required for the safe safe journey of the child in the 9 months. Then you deliver in a good hospital, followed by a good postpartum care. Postpartum care means post delivery care, where the doctor guides you everything about the breastfeeding, the delivery care for a cesarean patient, normal delivery patient, and by which you can sail through the postpartum part the very nicely, very safely, and then you can have a safe ride ahead. So after this, maybe the fertility part is over, the infertility part is over, then the unwanted pregnancy part is over. Then you come to the pregnancy, you have a child, you have gone through the childbearing period now. Now children have grown big. So what next? Now you start reaching the perimenopausal age. So maybe the age of 44, 45, where you start entering the gray zone area, where the hormonal disturbances, the changes in your own body in the physical form also start occurring. So basically, what now we move into the perimenopause. We transition straight from reproductive years to the postmenopausal years. So length is variable, 3 to 10 years. That is what the length, meaning that the transition means the time from which the perimenopausal changes or the perimenopausal symptoms start to the actual time of getting the menopause can vary from 3 to 10 years. During which time your ovary on a roller coaster, means your ovary is going through the hormonal changes. So what has happened in this time? Basically, the menstrual pattern will be irregular. You can have lengthened cycles. You can have delayed cycles. You can have cycles which vary from 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, because of the hormone called FSH, which is rising. FSH level goes beyond 30, you have finally stop getting a menses. So this is the transitional phase of the perimenopause. Then you go into the early menopause, and you have the late menopause. So early menopause, early means what? That you get then two skip cycles, 2 months, 3 months, you don't get a cycle. And during this time is where you, like I mentioned previously, you get those vasomotor symptoms, like you get flushing, you get sweating, you get palpitation, there's lack of confidence, you don't feel good like doing about anything, you always want to sit down in one place, relax, not being disturbed by the family members. This is, and then this is the very the early menopausal state, and then finally the late menopause, when where you don't have a cycle for a year. That is when you have entered your menopause. So like I said, welcome to your menopausal year, post-menopausal year. That is when the actual menopause is setting, and then later on, due to the menopause setting in, then you go into the second and the third peak of your life, where during the last peak of your life, you can encounter or you can come across the illnesses which are very commonly seen in the late, you could say late peak of your life. And what is that? What is the late peak of your life going to get into? Cancer. One of the most dreaded, you could say, diseases, which we encounter, and which I would just like to make a basic and a brief awareness. The most common, since being a female, is the female body. What are the female parts which we are concerned here? Is that we are concerned here with the breast, the ovary, the endometrium, and the cervix. So basically, these four parts are basically the affecting the female areas where you get the cancer. So cancer is mostly affecting females. You could say the list are breast, the colorectal, that means the colon and the rectum, the endometrial or the uterine, the lung cancer, the cervical cancer, skin cancer, and the ovarian cancer. Out of which my field gives me a better this better view to talk about the breast, endometrial, cervical, and the ovarian cancer. Starting with that, what is the breast cancer? Breast cancer is nothing but you can see a tumor or a malignant tumor which is seen in the breast, which is called as a breast cancer. It is diagnosed only, it is commonly seen in females, very rare in male. So what is basically what are the risk factors you could say for the patients to get breast cancer? You have hereditary. Hereditary, yes, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, endometrial cancer are the three cancers which run in the family. Hence, if anybody in the family has a positive history for breast cancer, then definitely they get to screen themselves every year for their breast. Lifestyle, wherein you have increased alcohol intake, you have increased smoking, obesity makes you prone, pregnancy and breastfeeding, and then diabetes, essential hypertension, and hormones. So all these basic changes can make you prone to getting breast cancer. Then Now, the symptoms regarding breast cancer. This is a pictorial diagram, pictorial the slide for you, just to see, just to let you know how you have to feel the lump or how the lump is seen and what are the symptoms which are seen with the lump. The lump that feels different from the breast, from the rest of the breast tissue, it is generally hard. It is not mobile. The normal, there's a different lump in the breast called fibroadenoma, which is made of fat. It is mobile. It is mobile in the entire heart. But if it is breast cancer, it is generally fixed. It may be size of a pea, but it is not mobile. It will be stuck to the skin, and the skin. This is the basic primary stage. As it may advance, then it may cause rash around the nipple. It may cause nipple discharge. It may cause swelling of that breast. It may cause puckering of the skin. Puckering means the skin over there will show you dimples, and it will definitely cause pain and tenderness in the breast. Breast cancer, the amazing part about breast cancer is that the earlier it is picked up, there is 100% fire survival rate. So if you ask me, if anybody asks me which is the best cancer to have, it is the breast cancer. If picked up in the early stage, it gives you excellent results and the 100% survival rate is very good. So what is basically the early detection plan include for the breast? What is it? It's monthly breast examination. There is regularly clinical breast examination, complete body checkup, mammogram depending on your age and history. There is 100% fire survival rate. What do you mean by breast self examination? Means at home you check yourself whether you feel any lump in the breast, and along with that, do you feel any lump in your axilla? Axilla meaning your armpit. Because if you have any breast cancer, if the lump is big in size, the axillary lymph node, that is the layer lymph node in the armpit, will get swollen. So because of which you can even get a lump in the breast. So referral point is the armpit. So you examine both, where in the axilla, and the armpit and the breast. So if anything is not it doesn't feel right or doesn't it feel lumpy, immediately report to your doctor. Regular clinical breast exam that is done by the doctor. Complete body checkup. This is basically not any medical problems which make you prone to getting the breast CS. And mammogram. Mammogram is basically where you take X-ray of the breast on a mammography machine, where you rule out the above problem. So this can be for patients who are average risk. This can be done in once in 3 years maybe, but patients who have a very high family history should be undergoing this maybe once in a year. The next cancer which I'll take you through is the cervical cancer. Also one of the most common cancer, you could second most common cancer among worldwide. And the bad part of cervical cancer is that many times it is picked up in later stages because it generally doesn't give symptoms in the early phases. So this is just a chart which shows you basically how the cervical cancer starts. So the erosion, the cervical, the mouth of the cervix is what basically the mouth of the uterus. So that basically undergoes erosion where the lump tissue is formed, and then it spreads from the mouth of the uterus to the vagina to the body of the uterus, and then it spreads in the body then. So what are the symptoms for cervical cancer is that you have abnormal vaginal bleeding, bleeding that occurs between regular menstrual periods, bleeding after sexual intercourse or pelvic examination, menstrual period that lasts longer and are heavier than before, bleeding after going through menopause. Increased vaginal discharge, you have pelvic pain and pain during sex. So these are the common symptoms which are seen with cervical cancer. And if any of these symptom is seen, you have to report to the doctor immediately for that, because uh, as a lady, I have seen patients telling me ki it is okay, I have it sometime, but I do not bother much. But many times this is a starting symptom. So if you miss that symptom, then later on by the time you report to doctor, it has already spread, it becomes inoperable, and then you have a tough time to deal with the future complications which occur because of cervical CA. Because the sad part of cervical cancer is that it is seen late, and there is exactly not much of a cause which is known for cervical CA. Though there is a thing called HPV virus, that is a human papilloma virus, basically which makes you more prone to get the infection. And second thing is multiparity. That means children who have born more number of kids are prone to getting the cervical cancer. So this is just a detection and diagnosis. Basically, is what you visit your doctor and you can do a Pap smear test. It's a very simple test in which a swab is introduced into your vagina and your cervix, and two slides are taken separately. That is the cervical discharge and your vaginal discharge is basically checked, sent for testing, and we just see how the cells in the slide look. So depending on that, if there is any change in the slide is reported back, letting us know whether we have got any cancerous growth or whether we are prone to getting any cancer in future or not. And also nowadays with the new technique, we can even diagnose HPV infection with that. Uh, on this note, I will just like to mention a point over here. Now we have been introduced with cervical cancer vaccine called as the HPV vaccine. They are known the marketers by Gardasil and Cervarix vaccines. These are basically HPV 16-18 strain vaccines. These are basically helpful in maybe not preventing, but basically maybe making you less prone to the cancer. They are best effective if given to girls before they start their menses, and even if they started their menses, we can still give them. But once you are exposed to sexual intercourse or sexual relations, the efficacy is not very well documented. So it can't be said that once you have sexually having you have a sexually active, how much will the vaccine be effective in preventing that? But yeah, definitely if you are having only you are started your menses and not still sexual exposed sexual relations, this can really be very effective. For girls below 11 years of age, you give two doses which are 6 months apart. And for girls otherwise above 15 years of age, you give three doses 0, 1, and 6 months. Moving on next, we have the uterine cancer or also called as the endometrial cancer. This is known as it begins basically in the layer of the uterus which we shed during our menstruation. And the risk factors basically are same like what you have in breast cancer because it's also a hormone dependent tumor. So the same hormone dependent risk factors are applicable also to the uterine cancer. It is obesity combined with diabetes. Then you have got the ovarian diseases risk increases and more. Also, smoking, drinking, and hereditary. All of these things play a very important role in getting the uterine cancer. So, the most important sign for uterine cancer is basically you get abnormal bleeding or spotting or discharge. We generally get heavy menses. Like I said, endometrial cancer has two peaks. One peak is seen in the menstrual age when the patient is in below 45 years of age, and then second peak is in after 65 years of age when she is in the menopause. So any patient in menopause with symptoms of spotting, bleeding, anything of this kind, pain, has to report to doctor immediately. We do a sonography, we can do an MRI, and we can also pick up this as early as possible. If picked up in the early stages, how do we diagnose it? This diagnosis has to be done by a doctor. Here, pap smear is not much useful. We do an endometrial biopsy wherein we take a tissue from the endometrium, send it for testing. So we come to know what kind of cancer it is, and depending on that, we can decide the operation or the surgical techniques what we can follow. So basically, the treatment for uterine cancer is depending on the stage of the cancer. So if it is very early, the surgical option is the best option where we remove the uterus, ovaries, and the remaining tissue. And if required, we subject the patient to chemo or radiotherapy. And if not, primarily to a chemo radio and then reduce the cancer and then maybe you operate the patient to give her a better life then. Last in the line now is ovarian cancer. It occurs to women above 50. Again, the thing is ovarian cancer is that it'll hard to detect very early. So by the time ovarian cancer is seen, at times it has already spread or it has metastasized. So following risk factors have been slightly found to increase the risk of ovarian cancer. First, spread at a very young age, later than average menopause, use of fertility drugs and no drugs. The meaning of use of fertility drugs here is that if patients who have undergone a lot of IVF cycles or have used a lot of injections for fertility, their ovary is overstimulated or you could say overused in the process of fertility to produce more number of eggs. So this hyperactivity of the cells maybe later on can damage the ovarian tissue and can make you prone to ovarian CA. Now the factor which can help you to reduce the risk of the ovarian CA are using of birth control pills like I previously mentioned, having children and breastfeeding. Having children here by it means that when you get children, you have a period of amenorrhea, it is no menses for 9 months. So what happens in those 9 months is that your ovary is still, the ovary is not functioning, the ovary is not ovulating. So ovary gets a rest. So basically what happens when you have your kids, the ovary is having a good time, so which reduces the risk of having your ovarian cancer. So what are the symptoms which are seen in ovarian cancer? Heavy feeling in the pelvis. Pelvis means in the lower part, lower abdomen part. Pain in the lower abdomen, bleeding from the vagina, weight loss or gain, abnormal periods, unexplained backache that gets worse, gas, nausea, vomiting or loss of appetite. The last symptom is basically seen when the cancer spreads to the remaining part of the body. These symptoms of gas, nausea, vomiting may be seen. Weight loss applies to all cancers throughout, maybe the cervical, endometrium, ovarian and breast if it is spread. Diagnosis and treatment of ovarian cancer is basically you do a CAT scan, you do a sonography, you picked up cyst, you pick up, you do a MRI, or you do a CAT scan, and you pick up the actual the spread, you pick up the actual mass, the spread, or actual the depth of the growth, and depending on that, you decide how you are going to manage the growth of the treatment of the cancer. You either do a radiation course, or you do a chemotherapy. If it is operable during surgery, we take out all the organs, means we take out the uterus, ovary, the fallopian tubes, the fascia, the lymph nodes. You leave the vagina behind. We must remove a cuff of the vagina so as to prevent the spread and thus help the patient. I have tried my level best in this talk. I hope it was not very boring and too medicalized. I feel to take you through the phase from the infancy, childhood, the young girls, the maybe the contraceptive part, the safe sex part, the pregnancy part, and the maybe the cancer awareness part. So I hope I have been able to give you a concise information and maybe start the ball rolling for your future sessions by the other faculties. So what do we summarize about women health? What does it require? It requires favorable health policies, strengthening and expanding health services, positive attitude and approach. Long-term basis, we require improvement in nutrition, education, employment opportunities for women for positive impact on health. Because healthier the woman is, the healthy her family is going to be, and the more healthy she is going to make our nation. Thank you. I hope it was a informative talk, and I am open to any questions if you have any.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Gauri, for this informative session. It was really a very helpful for us. Now, I'm having some question in my chat box. So the first question is, what kind of a diet and precaution should be taken by the PCOD person?
Aishwarya, I think I previously mentioned in my chat about the PCOD patients and the diet which is there for them, not diet but the PCOD patient. So PCOD basically is, you could say, a chronic process or a chronic disease. So in this, the diet basically which plays an importance is that you have a low fat diet. So because what happens in PCOD is that the metabolism in the body is little disturbed because of the hormonal changes. So you have a diet which is low on fat, high on protein, and adequate on fat, carbohydrates. Also, in this you have small meals. You have don't have bulk meals. The moment you start having bulk meals, what happens is that the fat is deposited in the body, and in that, then you tend to become more obese. So you have more salads in your diet. You have proteins in your diet. If you're eating eggs, a meat eater or a non-veg eater, you avoid red meat. If you're eating eggs, you avoid yellow of the egg. And if you're a vegetarian diet, you avoid things which are high in carbohydrate, like a lot of potatoes, beetroots. All these things can be avoided. You can have short meals. The best way to start your day is to have a very heavy breakfast, a light lunch, and a very light dinner. You have three good meals, and you have two small meals in between. If you in between, if you feel hungry, you can have things like khakra, you can have sev mamra, which basically will fill your stomach but not give you calories. So diet definitely plays an important role. So in that case, if you visit a good dietitian, she can plan a chart diet for you, and it will help you to lose weight. The moment you start losing weight, it will help you to reverse the hormonal disturbances and change the fat level in your body, and then it will even help you to go back to your regular cycles. Exercise, yes, definitely you can do cardio exercises, you can do walking, but like I said, the main problem in PCOD is getting a podge, or you call it central obesity, where the fat deposits in your tummy. So what you can do is you can do good exercises of yoga at home, or you can say abs, whereby they help you to reduce your belly tummy. So there's a good asana in yoga called Bhujangasana, where you lay on your abdomen, flat on your tummy, and you lift your body in a cobra pose. So called as Bhujangasana. That helps you a lot to get on your body fat, tummy fat. And the more the tummy fat comes down, the better you go back to your normal cycle. So yes, diet and exercise plays a very vital role in helping and keeping PCOD in control.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. And my second question is, uh, do you recommend any vaccine for the girls?
Like previously I said in my talks, the recommended vaccine for the girls with the companies recommend are the Gardasil or Cervarix vaccine, basically recommended for to prevent cervical cancer. So these are two different companies and two different vaccines which cover less and more strains of the HPV virus, which make you more prone to getting infections of the cervix and later on maybe make you prone to getting cervical cancers. The basic aim of the vaccine is to give it prior to exposure, and by exposure I basically mean is a sexual relations. They act best and they have the best efficacy when you are taken them before you get exposed to sexual relations, either before marriage or after marriage. Doesn't make a difference, but before their exposure, if you take them, they act best. So those recommended generally is for young girls at 10, 11 years of age. Those who are yet to begin their menstruation, they can take two doses at 0 months and 6 months. And if you've got a menses, then it is 0 months, 1 month, and 6 months. That's the recommended dose for the vaccine schedule. I
Yes.
hope I have
Now
answered
I
your
request
both
to Miss
questions.
Pranal. Miss. Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, thank you. Now I request
Yeah,
Miss Ranshul to ask you the next questions. Over to
yeah,
you,
okay.
Ranshul.
Thank you, Miss Mane. My first question was there, what to do if there is a family history of PCDOS, and is PCDOS is genetically inherited?
I wouldn't say there is a family history of PCOD actually, because PCOD there is not much of a role or there is not a very live fact to demonstrate that PCOD runs basically in the family or it is hereditary. It is a you could say a community acquired or a lifestyle acquired disease. Maybe some portion of your genetics play in the role, but yeah, definitely like I mentioned to Aishwarya before, diet, exercise does play an important role in controlling PCOD. Also, if it is not being treated, is not being controlled, please visit a doctor and ask the doctor for guidelines and help for recommendation for the same.
Thank you, ma'am. My second question was, when should we begin screening for breast cancer?
Breast cancer screening is see, if between the age of 20 and 40, you can do once in every 3 years. This is called a clinical breast examination. This is done by the doctor. The doctor examines the breast and tells you whether your breasts are normal or not. But then after 35 years of age, if you have a very, very strong family history of breast cancer, that is the breast cancer, that is where you are BRCA positive or your maternal aunt, your mother has had a history of breast cancer, then in that case, at 40 years of age, you should do a annual clinical breast examination where you go to a doctor annually. You do the breast examination. Also, you can do a mammography, which will let you know whether you are having any problem or not. And after that, 35 after 35 years of age, if you have a still very strong family history, you can go and do a MRI and get examined from the doctor and prevent the illness. This illness, if reported to doctor at the very earliest, is completely treatable. And nowadays, with the new therapies and the new medication, new regimes, in fact, there are such wonderful surgeries also where we don't even have to remove the breast. We just do a lumpectomy, that is a small lump is removed, and the breast can be conserved. It is so wonderful now. The science has advanced so much. So yes, it can be picked up at the earliest, and breast screening is the one which we can do at home ourselves. The best time I would say to examine our breast is after your menses, means after the fifth day of menses. Till we get our menses, what happens is that our breasts are lumpy or they are tender or we have got pain in our breast, so we can't touch our breast. So once the periods get over, the breast become light, the tenderness is less. So in that case, then you can examine your breast better. You know whether they are lumpy or not, and then you can get the correct idea. So at any time, if you feel you are finding any small lump in the breast or in the axilla, you report to your doctor immediately and get it examined whether it is normal or not.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering my question.
Yeah,
So now,
welcome.
now I call upon Dr. Naita Madam for vote of thanks.
Okay.
It's my privilege to offer thanks on this occasion. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Gauri Valame, one of the most esteemed gynecologists, as a resource person for today's program on women health and wellness, Eye Cancer Live, organized by Women Development Cell and Being Me Committee of our college. During her talk, Dr. Gauri Madam gave detailed information about the health issues mainly related to the menstrual cycle from the onset of it to menopause and the post-menopause period. She also discussed PCOD, which is mainly found in young ladies. She explained in details its symptoms, causes, and about the cure of it. Finally, she explained types of the cancer that most affect women and which are hormonal related, that is the breast cancer, endometrial and ovarian cancer. She discussed their symptoms, the test required for it, self-exam and a cure, and also the vaccines available for these cancers. She explained how the positive attitude helps to maintain the good health and the what lifestyle is required to maintain the good health of the female. On behalf of Women Development Cell and Being Me Committee of our college, I express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Gauri Madam for enlightening us and explaining in a very simple language. Madam, your talk is really very helpful and we are all engrossed into it. It is very helpful for every female of any age. I extend my thanks to our Secretary, Mr. Kamlesh Pradhan, Treasurer, Mr. Satish Seth, and our Management Committee member, Mrs. Mansi Madam, for constantly encouraging us and giving the support to organize this kind of the program. I also thank WDC Committee member for the smooth conduct of this program, and not but the least, I sincerely thank our technical team. Without their support, without their help, it is not possible to conduct our program.